With rising inventory, buyer incentives making a comeback, closing costs being paid by the thousands, price reductions happening in the market, buyers are asking the question, are we moving to a buyer's market? We're going to answer that question and more on today's episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast. Here we go, y'all. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast, where we bring you the most up-to-date, relevant real estate information you're going to find anywhere on the planet. You are going to get it right here from your friends at Elite Realty Group in Morristown, Tennessee. I am Mike Elkins with Elite Realty Group. Got my partner in crime, Mr. Dave Elkins, also with Elite Realty Group. And today we get to answer the question, my friend, are we headed to a buyer's market? How and what say you?
I'm going to sum it up short. This is a quick one today. Maybe.
It could
we'll
be.
see on the next one.
Who knows, but I think that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, it really is.
It's a good question.
It really is. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of maybe aligning that's making it look more and more like we could be heading that way.
I agree. You are seeing rising inventory.
You really are.
You are seeing buyer incentives making a comeback.
Yep.
You are seeing price reductions. You're seeing a lot of different things happening in the real estate market.
Yep.
I have, again, like you said, this could be a really short episode. There is a shift.
There really is.
There's no doubt.
Really is.
There is a shift going on. We're going to talk to you today about 4 different things that can kind of answer the question about, are we headed for a buyer's market? Is it going that way? We've been saying for a while that we feel we're heading to normal.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I feel like every time if you are talking about real estate and somebody says we're heading to,
right,
everybody's waiting on us to say the crash.
Sure, yeah.
That's what they're waiting
on.
That
is that. You are
We've been
right.
waiting on it for years, man, but now we might be heading towards a buyer's market.
You're right. The crash is what they always want to talk about.
They're waiting on it, man.
I don't know. It's sensationalized.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they are watching for that, waiting for that. There've been people waiting for 10 years on that. And it ain't happened yet. Right. But there is a shift going on. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about it. Are we headed toward a buyer's market? Let's start with the conversation of, what is a buyer's market? Yeah. You know what I mean? Are we there yet? The short answer is no. Okay. Yeah. A buyer's market, you typically call it, a buyer's market. Okay. Normal is anywhere from 4 to 6 months inventory. Mm-hmm. We're kind of there. Okay. Yeah. Buyer's market is defined by the gurus, whoever those people are. Yeah. Okay.
I feel like I'm a guru.
I'm too. I'm going to start calling myself self-proclaimed. Okay. Yeah. But a buyer's market is technically 6+ months of inventory. Right. Okay. Slower days on the market and price cuts. It's not just one thing you look at. Right. To say, oh, yeah, it's not buyer incentives. It's not by itself. Price reduction by itself. Not interest rates by itself. Not included in that. Yeah. It's things coupled together. Yeah. Okay. That includes 6+ months of inventory, slower days on the market, and price cuts. Mm-hmm. Now, we're seeing everything right now in our local market, with the exception of 6+ months of inventory. We're not there yet. Right. We're not there yet.
We're getting closer, though.
We're 5, but we're not at the 6+ months of inventory. You look at the market conditions in the Morristown, Lakeway area here. Again, we are seeing days on the market slow. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're seeing that slow. We're around 60 some odd days right now, depending on when you listen to this podcast. We are seeing price cuts happening at an alarming rate. Yeah. But can I tell you that price cuts does not necessarily represent that home values are dropping.
Yes, that's right.
I think the price cuts we're seeing right now are resulting from sellers overpriced when they start. Absolutely. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. That's the biggest reason.
There's no doubt about it.
The biggest reason.
We're seeing those because of that. Yep. Not that the market's tanking. Okay. We just looked at this stat the other day inside the office, and we looked at a week's worth of data, but a month's worth of data was right straight on. But we dove into a month's worth of data studying the market, which is some things that we do. Mm-hmm. And out of all the properties that sold, 68%, I think was the number, of the homes that sold within 23 days.
23 days.
And no price reduction.
Yeah.
They didn't change nothing.
Right.
That's what they got it right when they started. They listed so fast. The remaining inventory that sold in that week, it took 212 days for those to sell. There were multiple price reductions, with the average price reduction being $35,000.
Yeah.
That means those people did what we're telling. That's why there were price cuts.
Right.
It wasn't that the market's tanking. It was those people tried $35,000 on average too high to sell their house. They try to overprice their property.
Right.
So what defines
a lot
buyers?
Of people still trying to do that.
They're still trying to do that, But when we look at the market right now, we've not got to what you'd call a buyer's market yet, because homes are still moving if they're priced right. We're even seeing homes being multiple offers being put on them if they're priced right out of the gate. That's good for a seller, not necessarily a buyer, because usually when there's multiple offers, it drives the price up.
Right.
So again, the definition of the buyer's market, we're not 100% seeing that here. What are you seeing in your area? What are you seeing in your neck of the woods? As far as, again, this podcast goes across the country, but what are you all seeing as far as your market? So we've defined that. There are early signs that, yes, we're moving toward a potential buyer's market, but we've not fully shifted yet.
Right.
So tell the people, my friend, like what should buyers know right now? Like talk to us.
So here's what we got to know. As a buyer, we got to remember that we probably have more room than we've had in a long time right now to negotiate. Okay, so we can negotiate closing costs, we can negotiate the price, we can negotiate for I don't know the word I'm trying to look for, but like home warranties, I guess I'm saying, like
just different concessions.
Concessions. That was the word. That was the word I was looking for. Concessions.
Bailed you out.
Yeah. So those things, because again, you were seeing a lot of. I've got some notes here. Price adjustments. I'm looking just in our last 7 days, we've had 109 price adjustments. Mm-hmm. Okay, those are all cuts, by the way.
Sure.
I know those have went up, but 109 in a week. That's a lot for us.
Yes.
We do have more inventory, so you got to keep that in mind as a buyer. We do have more inventory now than we've had to pick from. I think you just said 5 months, so we don't have to be as urgent. Okay, we don't have to be as gung ho to just go with it, and we got to buy the first thing that we see.
Right.
Okay, so that's important. But keep in mind, as a buyer, you can't sit around just and wait for the deal of the century. Okay,
right.
So I'm not.
No, that's a good.
You do have to have a little bit of urgency. If you do, a lot of people's on a time frame. Like we talked to somebody just yesterday or this morning in a meeting we was in, and they said that people had to be like out of their apartment or whatever, so that forced a little bit of urgency. So again, know what your plan is, your goal. And if you have to be out of somewhere, then your urgency might be more than mine if I'm not. But again, we got more homes on the market. We are seeing those price adjustments. We are seeing sellers give more concessions to us as buyers. So those are all good things. Mm-hmm. If you are that buyer, those are good things to kind of have in your corner, have in your pocket, and know that, hey, we'll throw a plug here, but make sure you got you a good agent, okay? Because
absolutely,
you just said, and I think this is true, that a lot of people need to hear this. We do still have those homes that are being listed 68%, I think you said, and they're under contract within 23 days. Okay? Was that the number?
That was the number.
Yep. 68% of the homes that are listed are under contract within 23 days. That's still pretty quick.
It's fast.
That's still pretty quick.
It's fast.
So I'm saying, don't think that as that buyer you have time to just sit around forever, and know that every home is going to do a price adjustment.
Right.
Because that's not the case. Make sure, have your agent tell you, is this one of those homes that we need to act on quick, or is this one that's overpriced? They can do you a market analysis and tell you if you're going to overpay for that home or not.
Correct.
So get you a good agent.
And I think you have to still go and we say this, man. We've said this 1,000 times as far as talking to buyers and what people need to know right now. Mm-hmm. Getting your finances in line when you start this thing, before you start this mm-hmm. thing off, as far as going and looking and shopping and all the good stuff, getting pre-approved it's so big.
It is.
I mean, it is so big for you to do that. It's always been big. It'll always be big, mm-hmm. but shop smart, because what you just said, the good homes still go fast.
They do.
Okay. They still, those ones that are priced right, which in our marketplace was 68% in the last bit, 23 days, you got to go fast. And so, but going back to the buyers, because you have more options and you got more inventory, it is kind of taking a lot of stress though mm-hmm. off of people, because 23 days is still longer than 2 hours.
2 hours.
You know what I mean? It's still a longer time. We are seeing buyers need to know this. We again Our goal with this podcast is to bring you the most up-to-date, relevant real estate information you'll find anywhere on the planet. Concessions are becoming a really big thing. Mm-hmm. We're seeing those with a lot of deals, so that's giving you flexibility. But you need to hear this one point. It don't mean that people are just giving these houses away.
Right.
That's not happening.
No.
Okay. That is not happening. We're again, you mentioned the word everybody wants to talk about, crash. Mm-hmm. We're not even remotely.
We're just going close to normal. That's what we said all the time, because I thought about this a minute ago when you were saying that. Like, we're getting really close.
Right.
We're getting really close to that buyer's market. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it could change so fast.
Oh, you don't,
because a lot of people, again, these buyers are sitting there and they're waiting. They're like, man, I like this house, but I'm going to wait on these interest rates to drop.
Yep.
We will go from being so close to a buyer's market to back to a full-blown seller's market that fast if interest rates drop.
That's so true.
The moment that they drop, we will forget about those price adjustments. Mm-hmm. We will forget about those home warranties. We will forget about them paying closing costs, because they will be able to name their price.
Yes.
We will be right back to where we was at.
Yes.
If those interest rates drop. One more thing I'm going to say. You talked about the importance of making sure that these buyers are getting all their financing in order.
Right.
I had this happen just the other day, and it was such a shock to people about when we're still talking about interest rates a little bit. They had some friends bought a house a couple years ago. Well, we know what a couple years ago interest rates was, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so they called. They was interested in looking at some houses. They done knew, man, I'm looking at a $450,000 house. And I'm like, awesome. Okay, so if you talk to a lender, no. I got a friend, and that's what they live in, and they told me what their payment was. And so, yeah, we're good with that. And I'm like, yeah. Big difference. There's a big difference in what that payment's going to be for you versus what it is for them.
Yep.
So don't just think just because your friend lives in one that you can turn around and afford that as well, because interest rates are a lot different now. So make sure you get all that stuff lined up from the beginning and you are comfortable. We've done shows upon shows upon shows about having a budget and sticking to it, and that is definitely the most important thing to do.
There's no doubt about it. And with the swing, what you'd say, the shift, the market is shifting. There's nobody trying to say anything that it's not. It is shifting. Inventory is growing. Concessions are being offered. That has a meaning to people that's out there. That's what you need to know out there trying to buy a house. Mm-hmm. But there's a whole opposite side and question of people that are out there right now that are also asking the question, are we headed toward a buyer's market? And you know who those people are? It's people trying to sell their house.
Right.
It's the sellers.
Right.
Okay. So when we talk about and answer the question, are we headed for a buyer's market? The things you need to know. Let's dive into here for a moment. Let's dive into here these sellers. Let's throw out some things that when you're talking about, as a seller, like what you need to know. And I'm going to go back to this, what I just said just a moment ago. The market here in the Lakeway area, 68% of what sold was sold in an average of 23 days, no price reductions.
Right.
The remaining 32% of that was sold on average of 212 days.
What a jump.
With $35,000 in price reductions. Mm-hmm. I need to talk to my sellers just for a moment, okay? I need to talk to you out there. If you got a home on the market, you're thinking about putting a home on the market, listen to me. Overpricing your home is very risky. It's very, very risky. With inventory rising, I told this to our agents the other day in a meeting that we had. With inventory rising, more options being available to people, the longer your home sits on the market, it just kind of slides off into nowhere. You know what I mean? It's still on the market, but everybody that's seen it, they've seen it. Right. And they've seen it for 3 and 4 months.
Right.
They're looking at it and saying, there's something wrong with that house. Yep. You know what I mean? The one across town that's just like it went in 23 days. This one's been on the market for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. Expired with one agent. Now a new agent's got it. Yep. Something ain't right.
Right.
You're giving your house, this cloud that's hanging over it, and it's simply because you're overpricing it. That's super risky for you to do. Yeah. The market, this is something you need to hear. The market's getting smarter. People are really starting to understand the need to, again, because they've got a little bit of time to do this.
It goes back to now buyers have options.
They got options.
Now.
They got options. And they're using the option of now I do have the option to research what I'm getting ready to commit to for a long period of time at a very high price, at a higher rate than I really want to be. They're doing their homework.
Yeah.
They're doing their homework. And overpricing is risky for your property. The other thing that I want to tell you about, and it's becoming so, your marketing matters. What your house looks like, it now again matters. We seen a period of time there where it was moving so fast. 3 pictures, the front, the back, and as you walk in the door was enough.
Yep.
And that's all agents was doing because it's moving so fast. Yep. They didn't have to do more. Marketing matters again. First impressions matter again. Your house being clean matters again. What it smells like matters again.
All true.
Your stuff that you've got sitting all over the place matters again. Because people have options. They're literally now comparing.
Right.
They're taking time. They're slowing down. They're using more common sense than they have in many, many years. That stuff matters. The next thing that I want to tell you is not only does the marketing matter, incentives matter.
Yes.
Incentives
I think this is big, man.
Incentives matter. Concessions matter.
Yep.
You having the flexibility to offer concessions, they matter.
Yep.
But let me throw one out here, and we need to do a whole show on this. Make a note. If there's a pen, we need to do a show on what I'm getting ready to talk about, and potentially even bringing in a guest with us to do it. But there is this concession that's out there that's called rate buy downs.
Yep.
Most people call it 2-to-1 buy downs.
Right.
And basically what it is where it's a concession from the seller that allows agents to use some of this money that you're offering in concessions. And I'm going to make this long story short. They buy their interest rate down.
Right.
In other words, they go from 6.5 to 4.8.
Be great.
That's killer.
You a lot of money.
As a seller, that's a good thing to offer.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to offer. Again, you comparing apples to apples. I can buy the same house, same price. Concessions are the same, but the rate on this house is 6.5. But because the seller is giving me a concession over here to use on a rate buy down, I can get 4.8. You know what that means? That your house payment is cheaper.
Yeah.
Than the one across the street.
And I'm telling you, I hear people because, again, you see a lot of people it's bought a house in the last 2 or 3 years. And again, just because of the market that we was in, they didn't get nothing.
No.
You know what I mean? They paid the price or more. They didn't get closing costs. They didn't get any kind of concessions from the seller. And now they're wanting to sell their house, and they're trying to have that attitude.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That, well, they didn't help me when I bought it.
No.
We're a different market, man.
Yes,
we are in a different market. And you have to be open to stuff like that.
Right.
But again, that's all conversations that you can have. I told somebody this the other day. They was talking about their house and how they wanted to overprice it because they said, it's always easier to come down, right? I mean, we've all heard that. It's always easier to come down than it is to go up. And, don't think that I'm not going to be negotiable. I will definitely be negotiable. And I said, that's great. We just we won't have nobody to negotiate with.
Yeah.
It's great that you're going to be negotiable, but
no doubt.
have to have somebody to talk to first.
No doubt.
So, and I'm saying like the details, like you was just talking about pictures and all that, but I'm saying that like it is so crucial that we've not had to deal with this in a while, but the price is so crucial. $10,000 at this point. $10,000 could be a make or break.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be
absolutely
you getting it sold and you falling down to 212 days.
Right.
Because you know what? There's a really good chance, I think, and I don't know if there's a stat that proves this or if this is just my opinion. I said a minute ago I was a guru. But sometimes I think that those people, if they would have priced it right, would have came out better than that they might end up doing after 212 days on the market, $35,000 in price reduction.
I so agree.
They could have just priced it right from the get-go and maybe saved themselves $25,000 because these buyers that we're talking about that has they don't have the urgency because they got more options now. I think at some point, buyers, and this is great for you guys, but at some point after all that time on the market, buyers are now just saying, you know what, let's wait them out.
Yeah, they are.
Wait them out.
They are.
Let's see, because they're dropping that baby every week. Let's just see. Let's wait them out, see how far they'll go.
Yep.
So you might go 6 months and it expired, and you list it back with another agent. You list it back at the same price that it expired at. 2 more weeks into it, you've reduced it again. They're going to wait you out.
Yep.
Price it right to get, and then you won't have those buyers sitting there just waiting on you.
That's right.
To see where you finally bottom out at, because it went from this is what you could have made, and now you're down to desperation. We got to move this thing. I'm going to give it away.
I had a conversation.
Don't be that person.
No, I had a conversation with an agent the other day, and this was what they said to me. They were stoked about this. Okay. Now, this house has been on the market for a while that we were discussing, okay? Multiple price reductions have happened, okay? Yep. That's where we are right now with the marketing and the try to sell this house. And this was a comment that they made, and I'm going to tell you what I said back. They said, my house has had thousands, okay? I don't remember the number. I remember the second number, but I don't remember the first number. My home has had thousands of views. And there's 57 saves. Like means y'all know what site they're watching on, okay? Yeah. There's 57 people that saved it. I cannot understand how the showings have dried. I mean, it just dry, okay? Got 57 people saving it. I've reduced it 10 times. And I said, you know what's happening? Do you know what is happening with your house right now? I said, first of all, do you have more room to reduce? Oh yeah. We're not at our bottom yet, but we're getting close. But we're not at our bottom yet. I said, there's probably half of those 57 people that saved it. They're just watching you drop.
They're just waiting on you.
They're just sitting there waiting, waiting. They like your house, but they're waiting because every 4 days you're dropping the price.
Yep.
All right. So you got to think about all that stuff, y'all. I'm not telling you what to do. We say this a lot of times, and we take a lot of heat over this. I was in a conversation on TikTok just last night about, trying to throw a blanket over everything, and someone took, one little blimp of what we said and tried to turn it into something that it was totally not. You can't throw a blanket over everything for everybody.
No.
But when you got 57 people got your house saved, it's been on the market for 5.5 months. There's over half them, and you're dropping every week. These people sitting there got it saved just to watch you drop it.
Yeah.
And so just
they're like wolves, man. It's waiting.
Get to the point.
Waiting out.
You know what I mean? The sooner you get to the point, the sooner one of them 57 people going to jump off the sideline and going, okay, it's in my budget now.
Yep.
I'm going.
Yep.
I'm finally going. So again, sellers, if your homes still stand out, they're going to sell quickly. Okay. They're going to sell quickly. Just don't be thinking you're going to get 10 offers in 2 hours. Right. That's not the market that we're in.
Yeah.
So going back to this again, are we going to a buyer's market?
Yeah, I feel like we've spent too much time on the sellers there. We're supposed to encourage these buyers.
What about a buyer? Sum it up for us all and tell us what all this means. Like, what are we looking at the rest of the year? Give us the Dave guru, since you're the guru.
Yeah.
Give us the guru projection.
This is, again, I want you to hear this. This is just healthy. This is balanced. This is what this means for the market. We have inventory. We have interest rates the way they are. I'm saying they're still a little high, but they have come down.
Sure.
But I'm saying there's a lot of stuff that's lining up in those buyers' favor, okay?
Right.
Which again makes a balanced, healthy market. So, make sure that we always say this: we are in East Tennessee, Hamblen County, Morristown, Tennessee. Make sure that you get you a professional, that you're getting local information from somebody that's that's close. I had a conversation yesterday with a lady talking about selling a house up in Kentucky. Total different market. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, and different parts of Kentucky as well as different parts of Tennessee have seen are in different phases of their market.
Right.
But I'm saying that to say, make sure you're getting local information that pertains to you. Don't watch the national news. I saw that somewhere the other day. It was on the national news somewhere that somebody said we are heading towards a crash. Now, again, I didn't say crash. I said we're in a balanced market.
Right.
Okay. But because somewhere in California, if you're listening from California, you might know what I'm talking about. But their average days on market had hit like over, I don't know, or maybe it wasn't days on market, but something had went like over 80 days, and it hadn't been that way since 2007.
Right.
And so that was just a
sure sign.
That
was the telltale.
Sure sign, buddy, that we are in the middle of a real estate crash. Well, we ain't crashing right here.
Right.
Okay. So make sure you're getting local information, stuff that pertains to where you're at. That way you're getting good factual information.
I agree. Again, we're seeing the healthier rhythm from both sides. Every market, every shift, every change, it creates opportunities if you're ready for it.
Right.
So that goes back to getting pre-approved, knowing you plan, all those things. Yeah. But like you said, get that local advice. Here's what we'll sum it up, okay? If you're sitting out there, and you're waiting for the perfect market, you might miss the perfect opportunity to find and get what you want. If you're out there and again, you're saying, what do I need to do? There are realtors all over the country, and I can probably throw in world, that would love nothing more than to connect with you. I know certainly I can say for us here at Elite Realty Group, we're waiting on you.
Yep.
Okay. To connect, to sit down and have a no obligation conversation with you, to just spew information all over the place that you want, that we can kind of look at I said earlier, there's not a blanket that's going to cover everyone.
No.
Every person's unique. Every person has their own wants and needs and wishes and everything else. But all that it takes you is a conversation with a local pro, and it won't take us very long to figure out what the plan needs to be for you.
Right.
Get a plan and go. That's all you got to do, okay? Yeah. That's all you have to do. So hopefully we've answered the question for you today. Are we headed toward a buyer's market? Hopefully we gave you the information that potentially answers that question, gives you that information. Again, if you are out there and you are wondering, you got more questions, connect with us. No matter where you are in the country, connect with us.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk, man. As you can see, we've sat here and talked to you now for 29 minutes. We like to talk, okay? So connect with us. Let's make a plan for you. You got anything else, my friend?
That's it.
That does it for us then. On this episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast, we'd like to remind you, whatever platform you're watching or listening to us on, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we are constantly releasing new content, whether in long video form, podcast form, video form, or whatever form we want to go with. We're constantly releasing that to keep you updated. Thank you for watching and listening to this episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast. We hope we connect with you guys in the very near future. Have a wonderful day, y'all.